There's a strange punishment waiting for anyone who dares to wake up. Not from the universe, but from the people closest to you. Have you felt it? That subtle hostility when you walk into a room. The confused looks when you decline invitations without elaborate explanations. The accusations, spoken or unspoken, that you've become different, difficult, somehow wrong. You're not imagining it, and you're not alone. What nobody tells you about the journey of awakening is this: the moment you stop playing the game, the moment you shed the mask and become authentically yourself, you commit an invisible crime. Not against any law, not against morality, but against something far more powerful, the collective agreement that we all pretend together. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But here's what they leave out: there's a price, and that price is paid in the currency of other people's comfort. When you begin what depth psychology calls individuation, the process of becoming psychologically whole, of integrating all the fragmented parts of yourself into a unified being, you don't just change internally. You become something the world around you hasn't seen before. You stop wearing the persona mask that society carefully fitted to your face. You stop playing the roles that made everyone feel safe and predictable. And in doing so, you become a mirror. Mirrors, as you've probably noticed, can be terribly uncomfortable things. They show people what they've been avoiding. Not because you're judging them, not because you're trying to expose them, but simply because you exist differently now. You're present in a way that highlights their absence. You're authentic in a way that reveals their performance. You're free in a way that exposes their imprisonment. This isn't about how to avoid irritating others. That ship sailed the moment you chose consciousness over comfort. This is about understanding why it happens, why your very presence seems to set off invisible alarms in other people's nervous systems. Through the lens of Jungian psychology, we'll explore 5 specific ways the collective ego will react to your awakening. 5 patterns that repeat across cultures, across families, across every social structure, where one person dares to wake up while others remain asleep. Understanding these patterns won't make them disappear, but it will free you from the confusion and guilt that often accompany them. Before we journey deeper, if this resonates, hit that like button and subscribe. Your support helps this reach other souls walking the path of individuation. Individuation sounds complex, but it's beautifully simple. It's the process of becoming who you actually are beneath all the layers of conditioning, expectation, and social programming. It's the journey from living as a collection of other people's opinions to living as an integrated whole human being. You were born as a seed containing your entire unique blueprint. But as you grew, your family needed you to be a certain way. Your school needed you to fit certain molds. Your culture demanded certain performances. So you developed what we call a persona, a mask, a social face that allowed you to survive and belong. For most people, this persona becomes their entire identity. They mistake the mask for the face. They believe the role is who they are. And there's nothing inherently wrong with this, except for one problem: it's not the truth. The mask is not you. The role is not your essence. When you individuate, you begin removing these masks, not to be rebellious, but because you can't breathe anymore underneath all that pretense. You start integrating your shadow, those parts of yourself you rejected because they weren't acceptable to others. You start living from the self, that deeper center of your being that knows who you are without needing consensus or approval. This is where the trouble begins. We don't just live as isolated individuals. We exist within what depth psychology calls the collective unconscious, a shared psychological inheritance, a kind of invisible web that connects all human beings through common patterns, instincts, and fears. This collective has tremendous power. It shapes how we think, what we believe is possible, and most importantly, how we're supposed to behave. The collective unconscious exerts constant pressure toward conformity, not out of malice, but out of survival instinct. For most of human history, belonging to the tribe meant life, and exclusion meant death. So we evolved psychological mechanisms that keep us aligned with the group, that make us feel anxious when we deviate, that punish those who threaten the consensus. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. Throughout history, the ones who individuated the mystics, the artists, the truth-tellers, were often exiled, ridiculed, or worse, because they represented a threat to the collective agreement about reality. When you wake up, when you refuse to stay asleep in the shared dream, you become that threat. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your very existence asks a dangerous question. What if we don't have to live this way? Most people live entirely through their persona. They've identified so completely with their social mask that they've forgotten it's a mask. They believe they are the good mother, the successful businessman, the dutiful son, the fun friend. These aren't just roles they play. These are who they think they are. The persona serves an important function. It allows us to navigate social situations, to function in our careers, to fulfill our responsibilities. But when it becomes our entire identity, we're living in a prison we can't see. We're performing a part we never consciously chose. When you individuate, you shed this false skin. Not dramatically, not overnight, but gradually you stop performing. You stop pretending to care about things you don't care about. You stop laughing at jokes that aren't funny. You stop attending events that drain your soul. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't really listening. And this is where others become deeply uncomfortable, because they built their relationship with your persona, not with you. They know the character you played, not the person beneath the costume. And now you're asking them to relate to someone they don't recognize. But it goes deeper than just personal relationships. When you individuate, when you stop projecting and start seeing clearly, you become a psychological mirror to everyone around you. Projection is one of the most fundamental mechanisms of the unconscious mind. We take the parts of ourselves we cannot accept, our fears, our desires, our unlived potential, and we see them in others instead. We project our shadow outward because looking at it directly is too painful. Most human interaction is actually a dance of projections. We're not really seeing each other. We're seeing our own unconscious material reflected in the other person. When you individuate, when you do the hard work of integrating your own shadow, you stop projecting as much. You start seeing people as they actually are. You become more present, more clear, more real. And this clarity is incredibly disturbing to those who are still living in the hall of mirrors. Because when you stop projecting onto them, when you simply see them without judgment or idealization, they suddenly feel exposed. Your freedom reflects their imprisonment. Your authenticity highlights their pretense. Your peace exposes their internal chaos. This is not something you're doing to them. It's an automatic psychological process. You've simply become a clear mirror instead of a cloudy one. The work of Carl Jung, empath, and personal development taught us that the shadow is not evil. It's simply unconscious. It contains not just our rejected vices, but also our rejected virtues, our unlived potential, our buried gifts, our authentic power. When you do this work, you become more complete, more real, more present. But you also become more disturbing to those who haven't done this work, because you're now embodying what they've rejected in themselves. So when they look at you, they're seeing their own unlived life looking back at them. They're seeing the freedom they denied themselves, the authenticity they sacrificed for approval. And instead of inspiring them, their ego panics. Reaction 1. They demand you justify your existence. The first thing you'll notice as you individuate is this: people want explanations. They want to know why you're making the choices you're making, why you quit that job everyone thought was so great, why you're not attending family gatherings the way you used to, why you've changed your lifestyle, your relationships, your entire way of being in the world. And they don't just want casual explanations, they want justifications. They want you to prove that your choices are valid, reasonable, defensible, according to their framework of understanding. Here's what's really happening. Your refusal to explain yourself triggers their need for control and understanding. The human psyche has a deep need to categorize, to label, to fit everything into known schemas. When you individuate, you step outside the collective definitions. You become what the psyche recognizes as the unknown. You're no longer fitting into the boxes they created for you. And the unknown is one of the most threatening things to the ego. If you can quit your secure job and be okay, if you can say no without paragraphs of justification, if you can live according to your own internal compass rather than external approval, what does that say about their choices? The persona requires constant justification. It's built on a foundation of seeking approval, meeting expectations, proving worth according to external standards. But when you live from the self, that deeper center of authentic being, external validation becomes irrelevant. The self doesn't need to prove anything. It simply is. This is almost incomprehensible to those still seeking approval from the collective. When you calmly say, "I'm not sure, it just feels right," or "I don't need to explain my choices," you're speaking a foreign language. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Those who look outside dream. Those who look inside awake. This is the fundamental shift of individuation. Reaction 2. They test your awakening to prove it's false. The second reaction is more subtle but equally powerful. When people sense that you've found something, some kind of peace or clarity they haven't found, they often can't resist testing it. They poke, they prod, they bring up old triggers. They create scenarios specifically designed to get a reaction from you. Why would they do this? Because there's a psychological phenomenon called cognitive dissonance. When your transformation challenges their worldview, their psyche experiences discomfort. If they can prove you're faking it, they can dismiss what you represent. If you react, if you get defensive, angry, upset, their ego wins. It gets to say, "See, I knew it. You're not really at peace." But if you don't react, if you remain genuinely centered, their ego gets even more irritated. Because now it can't dismiss you. This is shadow material at work. For many people, they've suppressed their own longing for authenticity, for peace, for freedom. They've told themselves that what you're embodying isn't possible. Your living embodiment of those very qualities is painful. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. These tests, these provocations, they're all unconscious. The person testing you doesn't know they're doing it. Your job is not to pass their tests. It's simply to remain grounded in your own center, to notice when you're being hooked, and to choose presence over reaction. Reaction 3. They create stories and narratives about you. Here's something that will definitely happen. People will start talking about you. They'll create stories, theories, explanations for why you've become the way you are. And these stories will have remarkably little to do with your actual experience. The psyche abhors a vacuum. What it cannot understand, it fills with narrative. When something doesn't fit the existing categories, the mind immediately begins constructing explanations. You've become the other. You are now the outsider, the one who doesn't fit. And throughout human history, the stranger has always been explained through story. In Jungian terms, you've activated archetypal patterns in the collective unconscious. You've become the heretic, the fool, the one who left the village. The collective begins projecting shadow archetypes onto you. You might hear that people are saying you've had some kind of breakdown, or that you're going through a phase, or that you think you're better than everyone else. The stories will vary, but they'll all be attempts to explain away your transformation in a way that protects the collective worldview. What's fascinating is how revealing these stories are not about you, but about the storytellers. Each narrative exposes the narrator's own fears, their own resistances. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. This is the wisdom your individuation embodies, and it's precisely what the collective cannot accept. Here's what you need to understand. You cannot control these narratives. If you try to defend yourself, correct the record, set people straight, you'll exhaust yourself. You'll be pulled right back into the collective drama. The individuated response is to let them talk. Their stories reveal them, not you. What others think of you is none of your business. Reaction 4. They try to pull you back into old patterns. This might be the most emotionally challenging reaction, especially when it comes from people you love. Family members, old friends, people who knew you before they remember the old you. They remember the person who played certain roles, who reacted in certain ways. And now you've changed. You don't react the same way. You don't get pulled into the same arguments. You don't play your old part in the family dynamic. This creates what systems theory calls homeostatic pressure, the system's attempt to return to its previous state of balance. Think of your family or social group as a psychological ecosystem. Everyone has a role. When you change your role, the entire system wobbles. So they try to pull you back. Not out of malice, but out of fear. They need to restore the familiar order. A mother might say, "You used to tell me everything. What happened?" A friend might complain that you're not the same person anymore. A sibling might accuse you of thinking you're too good for the family now. They'll remind you of who you really are by bringing up old stories. They'll create situations designed to trigger your old responses. They'll express hurt when you don't react the way you used to. And their pain is real. They genuinely miss the old you. But your transformation is an implicit invitation for their transformation. If you can change, they can change. And that possibility is far more frightening than the familiar discomfort of staying the same. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This is what they're resisting. You cannot remain the person you were to make others comfortable. This is non-negotiable. Going back to sleep is not an option. True relationships evolve. If a relationship requires you to stay frozen, it's not a relationship, it's a prison. Reaction 5. Your mere presence makes them uncomfortable. This is perhaps the most subtle and most powerful reaction. You walk into a room. You're perfectly calm, perfectly friendly. But you can feel it, the discomfort, the tension, the way conversations seem to die down. People avoid eye contact. They seem nervous around you. They ask, "What's wrong?" when nothing is wrong, and you're simply present. They interpret your peace as judgment, your stillness as coldness. When you individuate, when you're no longer identified with the ego and its constant chatter, your very presence changes quality. You become consciously present. You're here now, aware, awake. You're not lost in thought, not rehearsing conversations, not planning the future. And presence is incredibly disturbing to those who live primarily in their heads and their personas. Most people exist in a state of constant internal noise. Their minds are chattering all the time, worrying, planning, judging, comparing. When you enter that environment, having found stillness within yourself, you create a kind of energetic disruption. Your presence acts like a mirror that suddenly makes their internal noise audible to them. They become aware of their own mental chatter, their own anxiety, their own constant need to be elsewhere. Your peace reflects their chaos. Your stillness highlights their agitation. And instead of recognizing this as an invitation to their own presence, the ego interprets it as a threat. The discomfort they feel gets projected onto you. Something must be wrong with you if you're not as anxious as they are. The field of Carl Jung empath and personal development understood deeply consciousness is contagious. When you're present, when you're awake, it creates a field effect. For some, this will be a beacon. For others, it will be irritating, disturbing, threatening. Your very being asks questions they don't want to answer. Why am I so anxious all the time? Why can't I be still like that? These aren't questions they ask consciously. They arise in the body. They feel the discomfort and immediately need to explain it. And the easiest explanation is, something is wrong with you. None of this is true. You're simply being present. But presence to the sleeping person looks like judgment. Stillness looks like coldness. Peace looks like superiority. This is projection in its purest form. They're projecting onto you their own self-judgment, their own feelings of inadequacy. And here's the paradox. The very thing that makes them uncomfortable is exactly what they need. Your stillness invites them to be still. Your peace offers them the possibility of peace. But the ego resists this invitation with everything it has. The awakened response is not to try to make them comfortable. You cannot dim your light to ease their darkness. The awakened response is compassion, because you remember what it was like to be asleep. Now that we understand these 5 reactions, we need to talk about how to navigate this reality. How do you walk this path with wisdom? First, see the bigger picture. These reactions are not personal, even though they feel personal. They're archetypal. They're patterns that have repeated throughout history, whenever someone has stepped out of the collective agreement. You've embarked on what mythology calls the hero's journey. Every hero faces the guardian of the threshold, the force that protects the known from the unknown. The collective ego is that guardian. Its job is not to punish you, but to maintain stability, to protect the tribe from uncertainty. When you individuate, you're proving that change is possible. This is threatening to those who've built their security on permanence. Your job is not to fight them. Your job is simply to continue walking, to keep moving forward, to trust the process of your own unfolding. And the way you do that is through conscious compassion. Everyone is suffering in their own way. The ego is not evil. It's a protective structure doing its job. These people are not your enemies. They're mirrors showing you where you once were. Recognizing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness in others. When you've faced your own shadow, you develop natural compassion for those who are still struggling with theirs. Here's the paradox. The more you individuate, the more you become both uniquely yourself and universally human. You become more individual and more connected simultaneously. Let's talk about practical wisdom. 5 principles that can guide you. First, stay rooted in your center. The individuated person has an internal locus of evaluation. Your sense of worth comes from within, not from external validation. This means developing a regular practice of returning to yourself. When you're triggered, you pause. You breathe. You return to your center. Think of yourself as a tree. The tree needs deep roots to withstand storms. Second, don't defend, don't explain, don't apologize. The ego loves to defend itself, but the self needs no defense. The self simply is. This doesn't mean you're rude. It means you're clear. When someone demands justification, you might say, "I understand you're curious, but I'm comfortable with my choice." Explanation is often a disguised plea for approval, but you don't need their permission. Your life is your answer. Third, respond to projection with awareness, not reaction. When someone projects their shadow onto you, you have a choice. Reacting means getting hooked into their unconscious material. Responding means acknowledging what's happening without taking it personally. When someone accuses you of thinking you're better than everyone, you can see it for what it is, their own feelings of inadequacy being projected outward. Fourth, allow the natural selection of relationships. Not everyone can walk with you on this path, and that's not only okay, it's necessary. Some relationships will deepen, others will fall away. And this requires grief. Honor what was, but don't let grief keep you trapped in relationships that require you to stay small. Fifth, maintain your sense of humor and lightness. Don't take the ego reactions too seriously. This is all a play, a cosmic drama. When you can laugh at the absurdity, you've truly transcended the game. Now, the sacred responsibility of awakening. Whether you intend it or not, your consciousness affects the collective. You are participating in the evolution of collective consciousness. Individual individuation is essential for humanity's evolution. This isn't grandiose thinking. It's recognizing that consciousness evolves one person at a time. Your presence is medicine. By being authentically yourself, you extend an invitation to others. Your peace says this is possible. Your boundaries say you can say no. Your presence says you don't have to perform. Some will accept this invitation. They'll be curious about what you've found ready for their own journey, but others will resist. And that's their choice. Transformation takes time. Some people will wake up years after knowing you. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Trust the mystery. So where does this lead? What does it mean to live as an individuated being? You are no longer the person who needs external validation. You are not the persona, not the collection of roles, not the stories others tell about you. You are the witness, the presence, the self experiencing itself through your life. You are consciousness, knowing itself, awareness aware of awareness. This new identity is unshakable, not because you've become perfect, but because it's not dependent on circumstances or opinions. It's rooted in something deeper than personality. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. This choosing happens continuously, moment by moment. This is the freedom that comes with understanding. You've gained something that cannot be taken from you yourself. You've come home to who you actually are. You're free from the exhausting need to make everyone comfortable. You're liberated from defending your choices. You have peace in knowing you're on your path, even when misunderstood. You have clarity about who your true companions are. Now let's be honest about the price. Yes, you may lose relationships. Yes, you may be misunderstood. Yes,